Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devam Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat Nashya Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Nashtaki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Om Ajnanatirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Tinamini Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatari Shatarini Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Close the door of my room. So we welcome everyone for today morning discussion from Srimad Bhagavatam once again. We are on the third canto and 8th chapter. So very Hare Krishna. I can't make others co-host as being a host. As co-host, I can't make others co-host. Oh, maybe they've changed it. Okay. Fine. Screen sharing allowed, Prabhu. I did it. Anyone wants to share screen? So, okay. So we are on a very important discussion. I mean, very nice discussion, actually. This is third canto, chapter number 8, titled as Manifestation of Brahma from Garbhodaksha Vishnu. This is around 33 verses. And what is the discussion happens here is, Vidurji have asked question to Maitreya Muni at the end of the previous chapter, as you saw. And now Maitreya Muni will begin to answer that. So, in the 7th chapter, if you go back on the 18th verse, if you have it with you, 3.7.18, there Vidurji says, convinced that Jiva does not actually suffer loss of knowledge, but not perceiving it directly, I will destroy lack of this realization by service to your lotus feet. So Vidurji says, by rendering service unto you, O great Maitreya Muni, I will be able to transcend ignorance or destroy ignorance. Like that, Vidurji said. And then later on, in the 39th verse of the 7th chapter, there Vidurji said again, O sinless Maitreya, tell me about the causes of this knowledge as described by the devotees. Can a person attain knowledge, bhakti, or renunciation on his own? In other words, in these two verses, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes, Vidurji is expressing his desire to take association of Maitreya Muni. And he's saying it is only by the association of devotees and the service to their lotus feet we can actually understand what is absolute truth. So, in essence, Vidurji have prayed for the association of Maitreya Muni and he has got the association. Now, Maitreya Muni speaks the first verse. Very beautiful verse. In fact, this whole chapter is incredible. It's going to clarify many, I would say, lack of proper understanding. This chapter clarifies that. We'll take a look at it. Let's begin with first verse. Maitreya Vacha. Okay, we'll read together. Maybe I'll recite this time. We'll read together then, because otherwise it'll take too much time if we go through all the verses like this. Sasevaniyo batapurvam sho yallo kapalo bhagavat pradhanaha babhuvitheha jita kirtimalam pade pade nutanayasya bhikshnam. I'll read the translation and then a little bit explaining the Sanskrit here. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So the great sage Matrimony speaks to Vidura. I mean, this is just simply incredible how devotees have affection for each other. The royal dynasty of King Puru is worthy to serve the pure devotees because all the descendants of that family are devoted to the personality of Godhead. So, I'll read the translation and go back to Sanskrit. You're also born in that family. And it is wonderful that because of your attempt, the transcendental pastimes of the Lord are becoming newer and newer at every moment. So here Matrimony is actually expressing his gratitude for the association of Vidurji. And he's saying, Vidurji, because of your thoughtful inquiry, I'm able to remember the Lord. And it behooves a person who is a descendant of Puru Vamsha. Let's take a look at Sanskrit. Sasevaniyo vatapur vamsho yellow kapala Bhagavat pradhanaha. So Bhagavat pradhana means the topmost. So there are three levels of realization: Brahman realization, Paramatma, and Bhagavat. So Bhagavat pradhanaha, Matrimony specifically addressing Bhagavat pradhana means, although there are three levels of realization, there are a lot of followers of Brahman, Paramatma, but you are the follower of Bhagavat, which means you are the follower or your devotee of the personal form of the Lord. Like that. Sasevaniyo bata. Oh, bata. Bata is actually an exclamation, a surprise. Bata. Ah. So here Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur writes, when he's describing the Sanskrit for this verse, he's saying, Sasevaniyo. Sasevaniyo means worthy to serve the pure devotees. And as I said, Vidurji had expressed his desire in the previous chapter, I quoted two verses, where he said, I want to transcend this ignorance by serving your lotus feet. And at the end of the chapter, again, he says, by association of the pure devotees. So Matrimony is saying, you have expressed your desire to take association of devotees like me, Sasevaniyo bata. And Vishnu Chakravarti says, he's explaining kind of surprise. He's saying, in fact, I am so grateful to you that you have come and given me your association, because of which I am able to remember. And then he glorifies him, saying that, who are you, O Vidura? You are a descendant of Puru Vamsha. That Puru Vamsha who has, from the beginning of time, have only taken shelter of Bhagavat Pradhanaha. So this is about Vidurji approaching Matrimony and Matrimony glorifying Vidurji in terms of, I am amazed, I am surprised, I am grateful that you have come to me. And second, your descendant, your dynasty. The last line is very beautiful. Babhu vithe hajita kiti malam. Mala means mala, the garland. Or what? Not pushpa malam, kiti malam. You are known to be a devotee of a level, kiti malam, who wears the garland of the glories of the Lord. You're always, and then he says, pade pade. Pade pade means step by step. Nutan asyasi. Nutan ayasi, which means newer and newer. I'll read Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur. Something very beautiful. He makes it in a very poetical way. So he says, oh, bata means oh. By this explanation, Matrimony indicates that Vidura agreed to accept this birth for saving Maitreya. The Puru dynasty in which you have appeared has become worthy of service by the devotees. And what is your nature? Among the three forms, I've already discussed Bhagavat Pradhanaha, like this. Among the worshippers of Bhagwan at every moment, Abhiksham, in every statement, on every occasion, Pade Pade, in every sentence, in every verse, in every chapter, you make the garland of the glories of the Lord become ever fresh. You string together this garland of the Lord's glories just by the thread of your taste. Placing this garland within the cascade of your ears and mind, which have condensed attraction, you make it eternally fresh. Your greatness cannot be expressed in words. Like that, Maitreya glorifies Vidurji. Now comes second verse. So, just to give you a little bit highlight, what's this chapter going to talk about? This chapter now, Maitreya begins to answer questions of this world. So, and of the Lord's activity in this world. So, first of all, he'll talk about the lineage of this Bhagavatam. How did Srimad Bhagavatam manifest it? This is one of the lineage which he would describe. Second thing, now you're talking about Visarga, secondary creation. Secondary creation begins with appearance of Brahmaji. Then appearance of Brahmaji is described. And that is something I really love the section. We'll talk about it. I'll take a look at it. Text number 2. Soham narnashula sukhaya dukkham mahagatana viramayatasya pravartai bhagavatam puranam yadaha saksha bhagavan rishibhya. So in the 5th chapter of this canto, 3rd canto, verse number 2, Vidurji had asked where the Vidurji Maitreya Samvad began. If you all remember, we discussed elaborately. There Vidurji had asked, the very first question he asked, how to mitigate distress and suffering. And we were making a point there also, Vishnu Thakur writes, Vidurji, although being a very advanced devotee, he didn't ask directly about the Rasila pastime. In fact, took a humble position. He said, as a common man, every living entity in this world is suffering because of the Dukhalaya Shasana. That's the nature of this world. How do I mitigate that? So that question being raised there is being answered here. So how to mitigate distress? To mitigate distress, for that purpose, Srimad Bhagavatam has been spoken. So one who reads Srimad Bhagavatam, hears Srimad Bhagavatam every day, that is the medicine for the problem of dukkha. Soham narna shulasukhaya dukkham, distress. Mahadgatanam viramaya. Okay, I'll read the translation. I'll take too much time in Sanskrit. Let me now begin speaking on the Bhagavat Puran, which was directly spoken to the great sages by the personality of Godhead. Pravartai Bhagavatam Puranam. Like that. Yes, yad aha sakshat Bhagavan Rishibhya. So this has been spoken by Sakshat Bhagavan, to whom? Rishibhya, to the sages. Why? For the benefit of those who are entangled in extreme miseries. Naranam Shula Sukhaya Dukkham, for the sake of Shula Sukhaya. Shula means very little. Those who are engaged in such a hard labor, always suffering, only for deriving a very Shula Sukhaya, very little happiness. Let me tell you about this. So Prabhupada writes at the end of the purport, let's begin at the very first few lines of the purport. The sage Maitreya proposed to speak on Srimad Bhagavatam because it was specially compiled and traditionally comes down in the disciplic succession for the solution of all the problems of human society. There is a similar verse. There are many verses. Similar word comes in the first canto. Of course, probably not the right audience to ask this, but anyone remembers where Vyasdev speaks? Where is our online audience? Yeah. Would anyone remember what's the similar verse where the question was asked? Lord has disappeared. Now, after Lord disappeared, the virtue, the dharma, everything has gone away. So, of what dharma takes shelter now? And what we can take shelter? Krishna Sudhama Upagayate. So dharma and jnana. And what is the third line?
Puranarko Dunoditaha, that's the last line. The third line.
This is 1.5 or 1.7. Anyways, Krishna is Sudhama Upagate. Like that. Anyways, that's the point here. At the end of the purport of this particular verse, Prabhupada writes, if one comes in contact with the book Bhagavatam, as well as with the devotee Bhagavat, who knows what the Bhagavatam is, then such a fortunate man gets out of the material entanglement. Therefore, Sri Muni, out of compassion for the suffering man in the world, proposes to speak on the Srimad Bhagavatam first and last. Many times, people, at least in the beginning stages, or let's say the public at large in general, they think the devotee is coming and speaking. You might have seen in social media, I swear. They think people coming and speaking about Bhagavatam or sharing the message of, let's say, distribution of Bhagavad Gita, etc., because they want to generate some revenue, they want to make some like that. That's not the idea at all. Let's say, get an unified stage. Let's talk about
Prabhu, your voice is breaking.
Hare Krishna. Is it really breaking so much, or is it okay? It's not good thing. We can have the cable then. Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Ram 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 Hare. It doesn't go to camera directly. Hare Krishna. So is the sound working now? Yeah. So both wireless and cable is all catch the sound wherever it's coming. Okay, what was I talking about?
So now main reason means origin.
Srila Prabhupada was making a point. So for a devotee, I mean, it's an austerity to come down to a level of conditioned living entity. And each time you meet him, you keep giving them this device session number 1. It's a major austerity. Tell them, who is God? You're not this body, but a spirit soul. It's a very boring subject. Okay, talking about God is still okay, relatable. But to talk about, you're not the body, but spirit, soul, how this world is a place of misery, extremely boring. There's no joy. There's no rasa actually in talking about all that. So here, Prabhupada, if one comes in contact, he says, therefore, Sri Muni, out of compassion for the suffering man in the world, proposes to speak on the Srimad Bhagavatam first and last. In other words, who can actually preach? Actual preaching only begins at the level of when one has generally developed that sense of belongingness to the Lord, Guru and Gauranga. When one identifies with Guru, Gauranga, and the Lordship, only then he can generally share the message, because now he's sharing the message on behalf of the Lordship to help his forgotten and lost brothers and sisters to regain their relationship. There is no other objective. And that's how Muni at this stage begins to speak to Vidura, and through Vidura, we all get to know about this. So the lineage begins. Text number 3 talks about it. So how did this Bhagavatam came? How did Muni heard the Bhagavatam? Muni and Srila Vyasa were friends. Narad Muni came and spoke to Vyasadeva. Narad Muni heard from Brahmaji. We saw that lineage in the first canto. The question comes, Maitri Muni ji, अब आप श्रीमद् भागवतम सुनाने जा रहे तो आपने कहाँ से सुना? So Maitri Muni gives that introduction. I'll read the translations only now. Text number 3. Some time ago, being inquisitive to know Sanat Kumar, the chief of the boy saints, accompanied by other great sages, inquired exactly like you about the truths regarding Vasudev, the supreme from Lord Sankarshan, who is seated at the bottom of the universe. So the questions that have been put forward by Vidurji to Maitri Muni, similar questions were put forward by Sanat Kumars or the four Kumaras to Lord Sankarshan, like this. Or they had the questions and they went beyond this, all the 14 planetary system to the Garbhodak ocean where resides Sankarshan. Who is Sankarshan? Who is Sankarshan? Ananshesh. Ananshesh. So there he went and met Anansheshi. Now text number 4. What was Anansheshi doing that time? At that time, Lord Sankarshan was meditating upon his supreme Lord, whom the learned esteem as Lord Vasudeva. But for the sake of the advancement of the great learned sage, he slightly opened his lotus-like eyes and began to speak. Text number 5. The sages came from the highest planets down to the lower region through the water of the Ganges, and therefore the hair on their heads was wet. They touched the lotus feet of the Lord, which are worshipped with various paraphernalia by the daughters of the serpent king when they desire good husbands. So Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, is the same thing which Srila Prabhupada spoke also during his Kumbh Mela visit to his disciple. The point is, how do this interplanetary travels happens? It happens through Ganges. One of the ways of interplanetary, you have flights, you have planes. One of the ways the mystics travel is through the Ganges. And you might have heard of this very famous discussion where Prabhupada said, the sages will take a dip at one part of the country in Ganges, and they'll come out in another part of the Ganges, particularly at Prayagraj, and you'll go inside the to take Triveni, you go to the Triveni Sangam to take bath, and suddenly your sage will appear from there. Not that he was taking a dip, he took a dip somewhere in Himalayas and appeared there. And that is the point of travel is mentioned here. Prabhupada in the purport highlights the same point, that how the sages, this is how the sages would travel. So they at their respective places took a dip in the Ganges and appeared right directly at the lotus feet of Sankarshan. Pollution free. What is it called as? Ecological, sustainable approach. Text number 6, and now they offered prayers. The 4 Kumars headed by Sanat Kumar, who all knew the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, glorify the Lord in rhythmic accents, with selected words full of affection and love. At that time, Lord Sankarshan, with his thousands of raised hoods, began to radiate an effulgence from the glowing stones on his head. Prabhupada writes at the end of the purport, there are many instances in which even a small boy who was a great devotee of the Lord could offer excellent prayers in the choicest words for glorification of the pastimes of the Lord. In other words, without the development of fine affection and love, one cannot offer prayers to the Lord very suitably. Very, very important point. We have discussed in the past also how many times we go to the temple and we are clueless what to say to the Lord. Prabhupada says, without the development of fine affection, not only regular affection, fine quality of affection and love, one cannot offer prayers to the Lord very suitably, which is appropriate. Therefore, it is said at the stage of sadhaka, we should repeat the prayers of great acharyas. That is a way of us approaching. If not anything, chant Hare Krishna. At least while chanting Hare Krishna, be conscious, which means my dear mother, Srimati Radharani, and Lord Krishna, kindly engage me in your devotional service. That's the minimal that we can ask for. If not, then you say Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitite Koryakya Arana Koryamane Asha. Na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim kavita va jagdish kame. This is a great obstacles for everyone. And that beautiful verse, Ainandatan jakinkaram patitama vishame bhavam. I'm just like a speck at the feet, at your feet, the dust of particle like that. Some other things, this we can repeat. Text number 7 and to text number 9 speaks about the parampara. So anyone would like to read? Nidai Pran Prabhu, I see you. Go ahead. Read text number 7 to text number 9 translation. Hare Krishna.
Can you hear me, Prabhu? Okay.
Yes.
Lord Sankarshana thus spoke the purport of Srimad Bhagavatam to the great sages Sanat Kumara, who had already taken the vow of renunciation. Sanat Kumara also in his turn, when inquired of by Sanaka Muni explained Srimad Bhagavatam as he had heard it from Sankarshan.
Please read the last few lines of the text 7 purport. In other words, we can actually read this whole purport of text 7. Please read the whole purport.
Purport. This is the way of the parampara system. Although Sanat Kumara, the well-known great saintly Kumara, was in the perfect stage of life, still he heard the message of Srimad Bhagavatam from Lord Sankarshan. Similarly, when he was questioned by Sanaka Rishi, he spoke to him.
Sankhyayana Rishi.
Sankhayana
Sankhayana Rishi.
Rishi. Yeah, he spoke to him the same message he had heard from Lord Sankarshan. In other words, unless one hears from the proper authority, one cannot become a preacher. In devotional service, therefore, 2 items out of 9, namely hearing and chanting, are most important. Without hearing nicely, one cannot preach the message of Vedic knowledge.
What happened next is described in the text number 8. Who heard next?
Yeah. The great sage Sankhayan was the chief among the transcendentalists, and when he was describing the glories of the Lord in terms of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is so happened that my spiritual master Parasha and Brihaspati both heard him.
Parashar Muni. Parashar Muni. Anyone would like to briefly speak about Parashar Muni? Who was Parashar Muni? Huh? Yes. And which those 6 opulences comes? What is the text he compiled or he wrote? Vishnu Puran. Parashar Muni. What else do we know about Parashar Muni? Father of Vyasadeva.
Father of this.
Yes, yes. Vyasadev's father, Parashar Muni. And Brihaspati. Who is Brihaspati? I recently spoke about in detail about Brihaspati, right?
Indra's guru.
Yeah. Brihaspati, and his son was Bharadwaj Muni. Bharadwaj Muni's son was Dronacharya. Like this. And Dronacharya's son was Ashwatthama. Brihaspati's father was, who is the son of Brahma, the 10 Manasik Putras, as we loosely say. What's the name of the father of Brihaspati? Okay. So like that. So Parashar Muni and Brihaspati both heard him. All right. What happens next? Text number 9.
The great sage,
Yeah.
the great sage Parashar, aforementioned, because being so advised by the great sage Pulasita, spoke unto me the foremost of the Puranas, Bhagavatam. I shall also describe this before you, my dear son, in terms of my hearing, because you are always my faithful follower.
So Prabhupada writes one very ancient story here. Pulastya, as such, is the father of demons. And one of the demons at one point of time in the history had killed or eaten alive the great sage and the father of Parashar Muni. And Parashar Muni became extremely upset, performed a fire sacrifice where, just like Janmajaya performed a fire sacrifice to kill all the serpents, because his father, our Parikshit Maharaj, was killed by. Very nice. What's the name of snake? Taksha, like that.
Taksha.
So like that here is been performed. And then Vasishta Muni comes and tells him, tells Parashar Muni, stop the fire sacrifice. Brahmana is known by the quality of forgiveness, and you should not forget, in this world, we need both the divine and the demoniac. Divine provides, demonic destroys. So we need asuras. You cannot destroy the asuras like that. And Parashar Muni, understanding that point, he stops the fire sacrifice. And at that point of time, Pulastya Muni comes, and seeing the quality of forgiveness that is exhibited by Parashar Muni, he becomes greatly pleased and blesses Parashar Muni that भविष्य में हे पराशर आप एक बहुत बड़े प्रवक्ता बनेंगे. किसके? भागवत पुराण के. I bless you that you may become a great orator or a speaker of Bhagavat Puran. Like that. And from Parashar Muni, who heard? Maitri Muni. So that's the whole lineage up to Maitri Muni. Maitri Muni heard from Parashar. Parashar Muni heard from Shankhayana. And Shankhayana heard from Sanat Kumar. Sanat Kumar heard from Lord Sankarshan. Like this. And now who is hearing it? Vidurji. Prabhupada said this is distributive succession from the beginning of the time. Now, text number 10 onwards, now the story of Brahmaji begins. So let me just give a little bit of overview here, then we'll take a look at the verses. What happens now? So, yeah. Kashyapa. Correct. No. Pulasya is not in that lineage. Okay. So that is later on. Kashyapa, Diti, and Diti. Daksha. This is Aditi and Diti. This is in the second birth of Daksha. In the second birth of Daksha had 16 daughters or 13 daughters, I believe, like that. And the first birth of Daksha, he had 16 daughters, of which Sati was the youngest. So that's a little later. And ultimately, it's all, everything came as Swambhu Manu only in that way. He had 3 daughters, Akuti, Prasuti, Devuti, like that. And Prasuti got married to Daksha, the first Daksha, son of Brahma, like that. So Pulasya is also one of the from whom Yakshas and Rakshasas have taken birth, like that. So in Asuras, just like in Devatas, there are many variations. We say 12 Adityas. Aditi had 12 Adityas, but that's not all Devatas. There are many, we talk about what? 33 crore Devatas. So which means there are other Devatas also. But these are the 12 main Devatas. Similarly in Asuras, Pulasya Mani. So now text number 10 begins with Garbhodaksha Vishnu manifesting lotus from his navel and Brahmaji is appearing. Okay, let's do one thing. Let's read the verses and then I'll give you the summary of it, what is going on here, because it is a little tricky. So text number 18 tak. Okay. Sorry, how do I see individuals who have their hands up? Side by side. Okay, Rakesh, go ahead.
Hare Krishna. At the time when the 3 words were submerged in water, Garbhodaksha Vishnu was alone, lying on his bedstead. The great snake Ananta, and although he appeared to be in slumber, in his own internal potency, free from the action of the external energy, his eyes were not completely closed. Text 11. Just like the strength of fire within fuel wood, the Lord remained within the water of dissolution, submerging all the living entities in their subtle bodies. He lay in the self-invigorated energy called Kala. Text 12. The Lord lay down for 4,000 yuga cycles in his internal potency and his external energy. He appeared to be sleeping within the water when the living entities were coming out for further development of their fruitive activities, actuated by the energy called Kala Sakti. He saw his transcendental body as bluish.
All right. I guess we go by verses only. It will take a time otherwise. So text number 10, 3 worlds are submerged in water. So what is being described here is about the secondary creation, which Brahmaji does, which actually manifests from Garbhodaksha Vishnu. From his navel, Garbhodaksha Vishnu is residing in Garbhodak ocean, residing on Ananshesh, and from his navel sprouts lotus. And at that lotus appears Brahmaji, who has been directly born from the Lord. So he's a direct creation of the Lord. And then Brahmaji begins the creation. So many times we feel that, our services that we have to render just to maintain ourselves and maintain our community is too tiresome. Isn't it? Management is difficult. How many of you agree? And we think if we can go to heavenly planets, our life would be easy. Just an FYI. If you think chanting 16 rounds every morning is a challenging task for you, every morning Brahmaji's service, nobody can do it, what he does. Every morning he has to restart the creation. What you're reading now is every morning japa time of Brahmaji goes in creation. And tremendous challenges he has to face when he goes to creation. Let me just walk you through with a story so you understand what Brahmaji goes through. Then if time permits, then I'll go to a little bit technicalities. There is not one Brahma, there are 3 Brahmas. Okay, if time permits, I'll talk about those details later on. So first of all, okay, let me just clarify. 3 Brahmas are not 3 separate individuals. There are 3 different things addressed as Brahma. The grossest form of Brahma that we know is a Brahma with 4 heads. But there are other 2 forms of Brahma. But the actual manifestation of Brahma is with 4 heads, but there are other forms of Brahma also. Hare Krishna. I'll unmute everyone. So आपकी private conversation public में सुनाई ना दें, इसलिए. All right. What was I talking about? So now what has been discussed here is Brahmaji's appearance. At the end of Brahma's day, let's begin the story from there. At the end of the Brahma's day, there occurs a dissolution. I know there are 5 kinds of dissolutions, which goes, one is Nitya, which is death, birth and death like that. And this is one of the dissolution which happens at the end of Brahma. So just like to help you understand, if you ever seen a lotus, when there is a sunshine, it sprouts. And when there is a sunset, it dissolves, or whatever you call it, it shrinks. Similarly, at every morning, what you call as Brahma's day, there is a creation. The lotus sprouts. And at the end of the day, the lotus goes back into the navel of Garbhodakshay Vishnu. It is not as simple as that. And that's the time Lord Shiva's Tandav begins. In such a way that first there's whole dissolution discussed in 11th canto, just to let you know what Brahmaji sees, to you at least empathize with his suffering that he goes through. First, there is a fire that destroys, that burns the whole world. And then there is a flood. So this is the Tandav which goes whole night in this material world. Everything is burned to ashes, and then to extinguish the fire, then there is a flood. Markandeya Rishi, remember the story of Markandeya Rishi? Is, under the waves. That's example. When the creation again happens, then there is a flood. It's pitch dark. There is nothing, no 14 planetary systems are there. So at the end of the day, which means at the onset of night, for Brahma's according to Brahma's duration, every living entity and all the 14 planetary system, they go back into the body of Garbhodakshay Vishnu in the subtle form. There is nothing existing. If you see this material world as an egg shape, which is generally considered, half it is filled with Garbhodak ocean. It is pitch dark now. There is nothing. It's a night time. It's pitch dark. Now, at Brahma Murta time, Garbhodakshay Vishnu allows Brahmaji to begin his service. It's not exactly mentioned. I'm just giving you a little bit of comparison here. Now, from the navel of Garbhodakshay Vishnu, the lotus sprouts, which is nothing but the 14 planetary systems, which we'll discuss later on. And at the top of it is Brahmaji. And the beauty of it is, he does not remember yesterday. And the beauty of it is, he does not remember yesterday. For him, it's a reincarnation because he went into the body of Garbhodakshay Vishnu. It's a rebirth. He doesn't remember anything. And now he has been born in an environment where the nature to aapka Garbhodak ocean hai. Upar sara 14 planetary system tha, which is now filled with floods, which is like ocean, raging ocean, high waves. And in that high waves ocean appears a lotus. For a second, imagine yourself, you're deep in an Atlantic Ocean. You go to sleep in Hinjawadi. What is this? Sangria, right? And suddenly you wake up, pitch dark and surrounded by water. And what happens when you have waves? You have been toppled around here and like this. So when Brahmaji woke up on the lotus, his lotus was swirling wildly like this and being thrown by the water here and there. And Brahmaji bolte, "Ye kya hai? Main kaun hu?" That's the first thing he asked. Who the hell am I? And what am I doing here? And he cannot see anything. Therefore, when he moved like this, Brahmaji said he got 4 heads. That's how he got 4, because he moved here like this. Ye kya chal raha hai? Can you imagine what a terrible situation? Suddenly you wake up and it's not morning, it's Brahma Murta, it's pitch dark. And there is only water. And this is a water of devastation. This is not a calm ocean. Like Jagannath-puri jaoge na, to wahan pe thoda water of devastation milta hai jab ocean pe jaoge. How the waves throws you and suddenly pulls you back into the ocean. Very risky. Imagine what would be the water devastation. And then Brahmaji got up and he's totally bewildered. And he saw standing himself onto the lotus. He doesn't have any memory of yesterday, all gone. So he सोचने लगा क्या है, कौन है ये? And he climbs down. He climbs down into the whole lotus, goes deep into the ocean, but he is not able to find anything. He climbs up, then comes back and sit on the lotus again. हमारा जपा कितना आसान है और हमें लगा कि हम कहीं जाके देवता बनेंगे. This is Brahmaji's everyday struggle. And then he sits there and he's wondering what to do. And then he hears a sound. Tapa. 2 syllables. I'll speak about the whole this thing later on when it comes. Tapa. Tapa. So past life memories. Matlab meditation. For 1,000 years. Like that. Yuga cycle, 1,000 years. Not Yuga cycle of that, because one cycle means one day. His 1,000 years, he sits on the lotus, which is swirling around. We think because there are so much anxieties in my life, I have managerial issues, I have family issues, I have health issues, sometimes devotee relationship issues. My mind cannot focus on chanting. Imagine you're sitting on a lotus which is swirling around. You've been thrown in the waves. How can you meditate? And Brahmaji does meditation there. For what? You do for 2 hours. Brahmaji did for 1,000 years. Welcome to the material world, a place of eternal pleasure. It's an advertisement. It doesn't happen. It doesn't exist. And सुनो अभी तुम क्वेश्चन मत पूछना, तुम्हारे महान क्वेश्चन रहेंगे, प्राइवेट में एड्रेस करो. पहले विषय को सुन लो, समझ लो, फिर क्वेश्चन उठाना. ठीक है? फिर क्या हुआ? So like this, he does it, and then Lord, being blessed, being pleased with him, and then there is the light. Suddenly there is a appearance of light, because of which he is able to see, and then he realizes that he's on the top of the ocean. And then because now there is a light, he can see things before he could not see pitch dark. Now he goes down again, and he goes down again. And that lotus have come from whose navel? Garbhodaksha Vishnu. And it is mentioned, he could not measure the beginning and the end of Garbhodaksha Vishnu. He couldn't figure it out, what it is. And that's the point of time Brahmaji gets the darshan of little blue boy. That is Krishna. And that is the time Brahmaji recited Brahma Samhita, Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. It is at this point of time Brahmaji recites. So this Brahma, our Brahma at this point of time, is a pure devotee. Vishnu Chakravarti writes, only he, not everyone gets to see the little blue boy. So he is a pure devotee of the Lord, therefore he got to see Krishna, and he got to see Vrindavan. All that will come in the story ahead. Hare Krishna. So let's continue the discussion. Picture honi chahiye to ye honi chahiye. है नहीं है? मतलब, you see Marvel Studios, X-Men, Y-Men, Z-Men. I mean, ये दिखाओ. This is, तुम लोग अगर, if you are able to visualize what I was talking about, तुम लोग की सारी मूवी की इच्छा पूरी कर दी आज मैंने. तुम्हारा अगर मूवी का कोई इच्छा बचा होगा तो मूवी पूरा हो गया होगा. Okay. Mother Medhavni, go ahead. We were 10th and 11th, and I believe 12th. 1,000 cycles of 4 yugas. Actually interesting. Well, that will clarify later on. All right. So that has been read. Text number 13. Please read. Hare Krishna. क्या चल रहा है भाई? जल्दी जल्दी पढ़ो भाई. माता श्री अनम्यूट करने का कष्ट करें आप कृपा करके.
Text 13 translation.
Yes.
Dandavat Pranam Prabhu. The subtle subject matter of creation on which the Lord's attention was fixed was agitated by the material mode of passion, and thus the subtle form of creation pierced through his abdomen. Text 14. Piercing through this sum total form of the fruit of activity of the living entities took the shape of the bud of a lotus flower, generated from the personality of Vishnu. And by his supreme will, it illuminated everything like the sun and dried up the vast waters of devastation.
This is whole
Text
summary of
15.
the whole summary of the pastime which I just spoke. Huh? This has not happened like this. What I just told you, this particular verse, I've given you the summary of the whole pastime. But the details is what I told you. You're gonna get into the details now. Okay. Continue. Text number 15.
Text 15. Into that universal lotus flower, Lord Vishnu personally entered as a super soul. And when it was thus impregnated with all the modes of material nature, the personality of Vedic wisdom, whom we call the self-born, was generated.
So
Text
there are
15.
3 Brahmas. The subtle form of Brahma, Prabhupada writes in the purport also, our Acharya's code. The subtle form of Brahma is called Hiranya Garbha. The gross form of Brahma is called the lotus stem itself. That is Brahma. And the 4-headed form is the person Brahma. These are the 3 Brahmas. Okay. Text number 16. The 4-head appears. Go ahead.
Text 16. Brahma, born out of the lotus flower, could not see the world, although he was situated in the whole. He therefore circumambulated all of space, and while moving his eyes in all directions, he achieved 4 heads in terms of the 4 directions.
So now you understand these verses in the storyline that I told you. This is the, when you go through verses, you will not be able to really understand the storyline. So when I gave you the story, on that way, you try to see this is what is happening step by step. Here summary has been given, but Acharya goes in a lot of details in the commentaries like this. So what happens during devastation is, actually I said the Tandav, Rudra doesn't do Tandav that point of time. That's another situation. Rudra's third eye opens. This is what happens in this particular dissolution. And from that third eye comes fire. And that third eye had opened one of the pastimes also, remember? Shiv Puran mentions, I was narrating Shiv Puran recently. What happens? It is given in our Ramcharitmanas also. We were quoting that in Himalaya trip also. Kamdev. So when, there was a need of the, what do you call as, the commander-in-chief. So anyways, you know the story, I told you all that. So that's what third eye had opened. So like this, with this third eye, he burns all the lokas like this. And then the deluge happens. Text number 17. Oh yeah, I forgot. It's not only flood. It's not only, there is a thunderstorm. There's a heavy windstorm. Because what dries is the windstorm. That I forgot to mention. What dries is ocean water is the windstorm. Like this. Text number 17, please read.
Text 17. Lord Brahma, situated in that lotus, could not perfectly understand the creation, the lotus or himself. At the end of the millennium, the air of devastation began to move the water and the lotus in great circular waves.
So I told you, right? He was moving great circular waves. So at the end of the millennium means Brahma Murta time for him. You're getting it? Because at the end of the day, end of the night, I'm sorry, at the end of night. Now, because the creation has to happen, why there's a feedback? Yeah. So what was I saying? So now this whole water of devastation has to be dried up. So for that, there was a windstorm. Windstorm with the flood water. So now let's compare to our situation. We also undergo the situation of windstorm in our head. We sometimes have a difficulty in our life, and there's raging wind in our mind of thoughts, and we find difficulty to meditate. Yes or no? But here there is actual physical windstorm, Brahmaji. Externally, forget about internally. Externally, he is shaking up. So point I'm trying to raise here from this storyline, the one lesson I wanted to bring to everyone's notice, and this is one of my favorite part of this particular chapter, and for my own personal application also, no point of time in this life, in this world, the water will subside or the windstorm will subside. The nature of material world is such there would always be turbulence. So those of us who came to Krishna consciousness from Shanti, that is okay. That's a good advertisement. But Shanti isn't there. So then you say, okay, so what's the thing? What we're going to get by, practicing bhakti? Would we never attain the stage of perfect meditation on the Lord? Well, You can. For that, you might have to take hundreds and thousands of births again and again to attain that state of perfection. But as far as pleasing Krishna, we perform bhakti to please Krishna. Krishna is pleased by seeing us struggling for his pleasure. That's it. Just like simple example for a parent and a child. What can child really do? But if the mother and father, there's a child has taken a little bit of pain just to do something, just to do some service to the parents, would the parents be happy or not? Similarly, it's not that the parents expecting the child to do something very great, but he thought of us, he remembered us, and for our sake, he did something. Imagine, let's say you cook something for the parents, that you can have ordered from Pizza Hut, but you took a pain on yourself to cook it. That is what pleases the Lord. That's what we have to understand. So, I don't know why people keep on having these complaints again and again. Life में ये बुरा है, ये challenges हैं. अबे कुछ नया बोलो. तो वही घिसी पिटा वो रोना गाते रहते. What's new? There's nothing new. Nothing gonna change. If you keep looking at there is a fault, there's a problem. The problem is always gonna stay. ब्रह्मा जी का मॉर्निंग प्रोग्राम है ये. उम्मीद करता हूँ कल से ग्रेटिट्यूड बना रहेगा कि हमारा मॉर्निंग प्रोग्राम कितना शांत है. कहीं विंड साउंड, थंडर साउंड नहीं आ रही, कहीं हमें कोई लाते नहीं मार रहा, कहीं हम हिल नहीं रहे हैं, हमारा आसन भी ठीक ठाक है. ये करके. So again, yesterday we had Damodar Prabhu was making a point. This is one of the attribute of His Holiness Radhana Swami Maharaj, which is one of the greatest source of inspiration. In my personal dealings with him, also back in America, I met him so many occasions. I had so many ups and downs there during my stay. I never saw him finding fault or criticizing or complaining ever. If at max he didn't have anything to say, he will just keep quiet and listen. But I never heard ever any situation where he said anything like that. It's not that he will not chastise. His chastisements are heavy, which is needed. That's okay. But never found fault with anyone. Of course, if you have some anartha, then he will point out and he'll say you have to change. But blaming someone else for your situation is where we get into complaining mode. Never. And Damodar Prabhu was saying, Maharaj have gone through so much, has seen so much extremes of everything. The praises, which are not easy at times, and also people finding fault with him. But I really like the point. Even if people find fault with him, he would not find fault back with them. He'll say, there is some misunderstanding. It's not easy to say that. How many of you agree? The moment somebody finds fault with you, immediately you start looking at with the telescope. अरे सभी fault है उसमें, तभी उसको मेरे में fault दिख रहा है. And he said, Maharaj says, some misunderstanding. Wow. There's a real substance. You can't just have it. So, this is the thing. This is what it is. Accept the truth. Brahmaji is going through, that is his meditation. All right, continue. Text number 18.
Text 18. Lord Brahma, in his ignorance, contemplated, who am I that am situated on the top of this lotus? Wherefrom has it sprouted? There must be something downwards, and that from which this lotus has grown must be within the water.
All right. So now the story continues. I'll read text number 19. Brahmaji climbed down. Lord Brahma, thus contemplating, entered the water through the channel of the stem of the lotus, but in spite of entering the stem and going near to the navel of Vishnu, he could not trace out the root. And like this, he searched in the water of devastation for hundreds of years. What is my root? From where did this lotus have come? O Vidura, while searching in that way about his existence, Brahma reached his ultimate time, which is eternal wheel in the hand of Vishnu, which generates fear in the mind of the living entity, like the fear of death. And what did Brahma do? Brahma, not able to find anything, got disappointed, and he returned back. Text number 21. After being unable to achieve the desired destination, he retired from such searching and came back again to the top of the lotus. And thus, controlling all objectives, he concentrated his mind on the Supreme Lord. Very beautiful puppet. So, this is whole pastime is full of many, many lessons. Let's take at one or two reflections here. So he went through a deep sea exploration. That's what happened. Similarly, as a sadhaka, we have to also go through deep sea exploration. That is introspection. And to find within ourselves, what it is. And when we genuinely do that, that is the time Lord will manifest. Before Lord will manifest, he will showcase us what our issues are. See, Brahma went for deep sea exploration. For how long? 100 years. Have we even did that kind of, let's say, what is deep sea exploration for you? To really put in technical way, do a SWOT analysis of yourself. Understand what are my strengths and weaknesses. Even do that. Forget about opportunities and threats also. If not deep sea, do at least a shallow exploration. Kuch to karo. But it's very difficult task to really, a little bit introspect on oneself. Now Brahmaji did that. He wasn't successful. He came back. And then he began to meditate. Prabhupada writes, text number 21, incredible purport. Samadhi involves concentrating the mind upon the supreme cause of all, even if one is unaware of whether its actual nature is personal, impersonal, localized. Concentration of the mind on the supreme is certainly a form of devotional service. To cease from personal sense endeavors and to concentrate on the supreme cause is a sign of self-surrender. See, when we are put into difficulties and challenges, one of the nature of conditioned living entity, that is very amazing. That's very amazing. Really amazes me, is we are too self-absorbed. And when we are put into difficulty, our absorption in the self increases more. Have you seen people keep just talking about their problems? What does this indicate? Self-absorption. Now, for such person, the world does not exist. The only thing in the world exists is I. And the point Prabhupada is making about Sharanagati of Brahma is, although he is in a complete bewilderment, complete, dilemma, he is not sitting at the top of the lotus and talking about his problems. What is he doing? He begins concentration of his mind. And Prabhupada said, it doesn't matter you're concentrating on localized, impersonal, personal. Brahma doesn't know at this point in time, but he decided to take shelter. But when we are in problems, we only talk about problems and we want to let people know that we are in this problem, but not take any solution. Have you seen that? Have you come across a situation where people are telling you about the problem? They only want to tell you problem. They don't want to hear the solution. How many have noticed this? So that's the reason Prabhupada is glorifying here Brahmaji's Sharanagati. To cease from personal sense endeavors and to concentrate on the supreme cause is a sign of self-surrender. And when self-surrender is present, that is a sure sign of devotion. So each and every living entity needs to engage in devotional service to the Lord, and if he wishes to understand the ultimate cause of his existence. Brahmaji understood it's beyond my ability and capacity to understand what's going on. There's no point. I need to take shelter. And take shelter of whom? Brahma even didn't knew whose shelter has to be taken. That is a point Prabhupada is highlighting. That's the beauty of Brahmaji's taking shelter. We know whose shelter to be taken, yet we don't take shelter. That's the irony. That's the complete irony. And that really amazes me. All right. Then what happened for 22 years? Oh, sorry, text number 22, 100 years. I mean, in text number 22, it is mentioned for 100 years, Brahmaji does meditation. And what happened? Let's take a look. At the end of Brahma's 100 years, when his meditation was complete, he developed the required knowledge. And as a result, he could see in his heart the supreme within himself, whom he could not see before with the greatest endeavor. See, Rupa Goswami says, bear with me, I cannot save myself or not speak on this subject, one of my favorite subjects, because about sadhaka. Think about it. Rupa Goswami says, Ussaha Nishcha Dharya, right? Why he emphasizes dharya? Because we lack it. We lack. We are so intolerant about it. Any endeavor we begin, the very first question we ask is, result kab milega? Yes or no? Result kab milega? Now, why Prabhupada is glorifying Brahmaji's surrender? First of all, he's taking surrender. He's taking shelter. Second, did anyone tell him for how long he has to take shelter? 1 minute, 100 minutes, 100 minutes, 100 weeks, 100 years. So Prabhu's spiritual life is not that, it's just not that you demand and you get it. It only depends on Lord's mercy. It took 100 years, and when Lord was pleased, when the Lord was pleased that yes, he is genuine in his endeavors, that's the time Lord gave him the realization. The Supreme Lord purport can be experienced only through the process of devotion, not by one's personal endeavor and mental speculation. As a sadhakas, we may do a lot of preaching, We may do a lot of book distribution. We may open temples. We can do many big things. It does not necessarily has to be pleasing to the Lord. It does not. You may become a YouTube star, Instagram star. That does not mean that your behavior or your service is necessarily pleasing to the Lord. Because it is our material calculation. Somebody sings very sweetly, somebody gives very nice classes, intellectual classes, or somebody has a very great style presentation. It's all karmic results. And yes, by the power of bhakti, you can develop some of the skill sets again, but it's not necessarily pleases the Lord. There's no guarantee for that. So what is the actual measurement of our success? Okay, let me ask all of you. If this is not what we measure success, then what is the actual measure of success in Krishna consciousness and spiritual life? How do you measure humility? We are so good at faking humility, isn't it? We are so good at faking. How do we? Satisfying seniors. Okay, what else? Let me ask you, what would be one barometer? How do you know somebody is really making progress? In other words, let me put it this way. This fellow definitely have pleased the Lord, because of which he's able to do such and such things. Compassion. A lot of hidden agendas could be there.
Able to focus on a daily japa, Prabhu.
Haribol, raise your hand and speak so I understand who is speaking.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, able to focus on the daily
You cannot
japa.
measure that. You cannot measure that. There's no way to understand that. Madarashni.
Prabhuji, reduction in sense gratification.
That's okay. Gyanis are also very good in it. At the beginning stages is okay. That's okay. You were saying? Following our authorities. Yeah, these are some preliminary things. Following our authorities also. Okay, that's required to be able to come to that stage. Yes? His behavior. Tatte nukampa sumikshramano bhunjan evatma kritam vipakam hridvag vapur vidadan namaste. And that was Brahmaji says, Jiveta Mukti Pada Sadayava. Says, such a person deserves the mercy of the Lord. He deserves to go back to God. Who is saying? Brahmaji. Even at the time of crisis. In our true color comes out at the time of crisis. You remember that story? I've told Prabhupada, I've said the story. Not Prabhupada's story. There was one fellow who would walk along with Prabhupada, and he could speak English, he could speak Marathi, Gujarati, all languages. The devotees were, no, not that. Actually, there was a fellow, Mr. Patel, I believe, who will come along with Prabhupada on a walk in Bombay, and devotees were confused. Is he Mayavadi or is Hare Krishna wala? Kya hai iska? Samajh nahi aata, rang badalta rehta hai. So Prabhupada said, well, if you want to know, what happened then? At one day, Prabhupada chastised his guru, his Mayavadi guru, and this fellow did tandav on the beach. He became extremely angry at Prabhupada. So, and then he walked away. Maybe Mr. Patel or somebody else. I believe it should be Patel only. And then devotees were saying, Prabhupada, how did you tolerate this rascal? Prabhupada said, see, all of you are confused. Who is he? Mayavadi or Hare Krishna wala? So I today proved you. Who is he? And devotee said, how? He said, once upon a time, there was this kingdom where there was a king, and there was one man who came there, and in whatever language you talk to him, he'll speak in that language. So king was confused. He wanted to know what is his language. So king announced a competition. Whoever would be able to find his real language, I'll award him graciously. So all right, everyone tried, everyone failed. I'm summarizing the whole story, not going to details. Everyone failed. Then one smart Brahman came, he said, well, by tomorrow morning, I'll get you the evidence. What is his true language? So this
Akbar Birbal story, Prabhu.
Sorry?
Akbar Birbal story. We studied when we were young.
Actually, it's not Akbar Bibal's story. These are the modern day historians who have quoted this Vedic incidents and given title to Akbar Birbal. I'll tell you the real Birbal story on this coming Sunday and our follow-up discussion on Indra. It's not Akbar Birbal. We often give credit to those rascals. Birbal was a Brahmana. He acquired the name. I'll tell you about Birbal's life in this coming Sunday. Anyways, what was the point I was saying? Yeah, so this guy was looking out the window, not looking out the window, he's talking to somebody, there are 4-5 people are standing, somebody who was speaking Marathi, Gujarati, he was talking to everyone. This Brahmana came from behind and gave a tight slap from behind. Ultimately, गाली तो अपनी मातृभाषा में निकलती है. तो उसने जो भी cat dog कहा होगा, कुत्ता बिल्ली जो भी कहा होगा, तो जो भी original भाषा. So point here is, How much ever we fake it, when you're put into crisis, then you get to know. हम कितने पानी में हैं. And be assured, you're gonna go through those situations. Be assured you're gonna go through the situation, relationship crisis, your bhakti crisis, everything will happen. That's just to test. All right. Don't talk among yourself. You're sitting right in front of me. Come here and talk. If you talk now, I get distracted. Okay. So what we're talking about? Brahma had to wait for 100 years. Yeah. So Supreme Lord can be experienced only through the process of devotional service, not by one's personality and mental speculation. Last point of the purport, text number 22. One has to wait for the mercy of the Lord before one can either render service unto him or know him as he is. Nothing, only mercy. So what we have to do, we have to continue serving. And while you continue to serve, if you do not find rasa in seva, you cannot continue in bhakti. Therefore, I've been repeating this point that our juice comes from seva. If you do not have one service which you identify at the stage of initial stages is very difficult. Therefore, I'm just quoting all these different points from His Holiness Adhana Swami Maharaj's lectures. Okay, I'm not giving references here, but giving a summary here. One lecture everyone should hear about taking responsibility. Maharaj very categorically mentioned, very important for every devotee to take some responsibility for the cause of Krishna, for the serving Krishna. When you take responsibility, then you identify with the seva, and then you begin to experience joy in your Krishna Gyan. Those who are saying, okay, apna seva sola bhala ho jaye bhai, thoda bahasa prasadam kha lo, apna bhakti mein जीवन चल रहा है, ये आया राम गया राम की कहानी है. वो आज है, कल रहेगा, कोई गारंटी नहीं है. I can write on a legal paper and give you. These are the people who leave the first, because there is no loyalty to anything, na? Because they never served. They never became part of the community like that. Text number 23. Now, Brahmaji got darshan of the Lord. Brahma could see that on the water there was a gigantic lotus-like white bedstead, the body of Sheshna, on which the personal God was lying alone. The whole atmosphere was illuminated by the rays of the jewels bedecking the hood of Sheshnag, and that illumination dissipated all the darkness of those regions. So now the jewels on the Sheshnag began to sparkle, and which illuminated all the universe, because of which Brahmaji was able to see. That's the story of the picture. Text number 24. Now comes the beautiful description of Lord's beauty. The luster of the transcendental body of the Lord marked the beauty of the coral mountain. Coral mountain which shines. So such was the luster, shine of the body. The coral mountain is very beautifully dressed by the evening sky, but the yellow dress of the Lord marks its beauty. Who wears a yellow dress? Yeah. There is a gold on the summit of the mountain, but the Lord's helmet, bedecked with jewels, marked it. The mountains, waterfall, house, etc., with a panorama of flowers, seem like garlands. But the Lord's gigantic body and his hands and legs, decorated with jewels, pearls, lilies, and flowers, garlands, mark the scene on the. Actually, Vishnu also wears yellow. It's not only prerogative of Lord Vishnu also wears. So right now, the Garbhadakshay form is being described like a coral mountain. Text number 25. You got the picture in your mind? So you have this blue hue, that's Lord's body, wearing a yellow dhoti. There is a helmet, and there is this jewels on his body and the garlands which are resembling to the waterfall. Like that is this beautiful description comes. Text number 25. His transcendental body, unlimited in length and breadth, occupied the three planetary system, upper, middle, lower. His body was self-illuminated by unparalleled dress and variegatedness, and was properly ornamented. Like this. Text number 26. The Lord showed his lotus feet by raising them. His lotus feet are the source of all awards achieved by devotion service, free from material contamination. Such awards are for those who worship him in pure devotion. The splendor of the transcendental rays from his moon-like toenails and fingernails appear like the petals of flowers. Please read the purport. You'll dive deep in this analogy which has been given here. Like this. Prabhupada quotes from Brahma Samhita. Text number 27. And Lord reciprocated to Brahma. He also acknowledged the service of the devotees and vanquished their distress by his beautiful smile. Actually, this is a very beautiful verse. Mukhena lokati hara smitena parispurat kundala manditena Shona itenadara bhasha pratharihantam shunasena shubhrava lok आरती हरा लोकार्ति हरा चिंता को हर लेता है कैसे by the beautiful smile on his face just by his smile seeing his smiling face we become free from all anxieties like that. He also acknowledged the service of the devotees when kids are distressed by his beautiful smile. I met several Prabhupada disciples who only had this much interaction with Prabhupada, that Prabhupada smiled. And they say that just looking, not even a smile, just a side glance, satisfy their heart to the fullest. Set them free from all the material tabernacles, all the attachments like that. So therefore, association of these great personalities, it is said, lava matra sadhu sangha, sarva siddhi hoy. Just a moment's association can deliver from everything. And you're talking about pure devotee is representing, is a transparent medium of Lord's mercy, which means is representing, exhibiting Lord's qualities. As Brahmaji had, all his distress got mitigated as soon as he saw the smiling face of Lord. Lokarti hara. The reflection of his face decorated with the earrings was so pleasing because it dazzled with the rays from his lips and the beauty of his nose and eyebrows. Prabhupada's devotional service to the Lord is very obliging to the Lord. If anyone renders bhakti, any verse from Bhagavad Gita, if you render bhakti, Lord becomes indebted. Neha vikramo na shusti pratyavayo na vidyate svalpamasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhyat. That's the point being mentioned here. His ever enchanting smile. I mean, this is something what you get when you serve the Lord. What else you ask for? That's the point of discussion here. Those who serve, they get the highest gift of the darshan of the Lord. Bliss, and gives the bliss, which is unending. Text number 28. It's a very beautiful verse. All right, let's read the translation only. Oh my dear Vidura, the Lord's waist was covered with yellow cloth resembling the saffron dust of the kadamba flowers, and it was encircled by a well-decorated belt. His chest was decorated with Srivasa marking and the necklace of unlimited value. Like this. Now from here, Vishnu Thakur says, this is Krishna's darshan. Text number 29. Now metaphor is given from text number 29 onwards to help us understand the beauty of the Lord, which is transcendental, by describing the beauty of the things that we can see in this world. That is called as metaphor. Text number 29. As a sandalwood tree is decorated with fragrant flowers and branches, the Lord's body was decorated with valuable jewels and pearls. He was a self-situated tree, the Lord of all others in the universe. And as a sandalwood tree is covered with many snakes, so the Lord's body was also covered with the hoods of Ananta. I mean, we are so unfortunate. We have not even seen the sandalwood tree these days. How can we understand the metaphor only? So Matthew is giving a metaphor to understand things of this world. And the only closest resemblance you can find in a sandalwood tree. अब वो पीपल का वृक्ष तो बोलेगा नहीं, भगवान पीपल के वृक्ष के समान थे. भाई अच्छा ही तो बात करोगे, सुगंधित सैंडलवुड ट्री. अब हम कलयुग के प्राणी इतने, हमारी दुर्गति इतनी है कि हमने वो वृक्ष भी नहीं देखा. तो इसलिए प्रभुपाद आए. And Prabhupada will bring a metaphor which is up to your knowledge. And इसलिए प्रभुपाद के उदाहरण आप देखोगे ना, examples, वो कभी मेडिकल प्रोफेशन का, या कभी कोई माता किचन में कुकिंग कर रही है तो उसका ऐसे ऐसे उदाहरण लेकर आता है, you can really not miss out. Text number 30. Like a great mountain, the Lord stands as the abode of all moving and non-moving living entities. He is the shelter of all. He is a friend of the snakes because Lord Ananta is his friend. As a mountain has thousands of golden peaks, so the Lord was seen with 1,000 golden helmeted hoods of Anantanaga. So those of you who recently went to Himalayan trip can at least have some understanding of this metaphor. And as a mountain is sometimes filled with jewels, so also his transcendental body was fully decorated with valuable jewels. As a mountain is sometimes submerged in the ocean water, so the Lord is sometimes submerged in this water of devastation. Text number 31. Lord Brahma, thus looking upon the Lord in the shape of a mountain, concluded that he was Hari, the personality of Godhead. He saw that the garland of flowers on his chest glorified him with Vedic wisdom and sweet songs and looked very beautiful. He was protected by the Sudarshan wheel for fighting, and even the sun, moon, air, fire, etc. could not have access to him. Lord Brahma saw everything. Text number 32. When Lord Brahma, the maker of the universal destination, saw the Lord, he simultaneously glanced over creation. Lord Brahma saw the lake in Lord Vishnu's navel. Wow, kya baat hai, huh? The lotus flower from where it blossomed in a lake. The lake is where was the original lake? In the navel of Lord Vishnu. Wow. And the lotus flower, as well as the devastating water, the drying air, the sky, all became. So now he could see everything. So therefore, Srila Rupa Goswami mentioned this in Nectar Devotion, one of my favorite points, analogy here. Those who say they can have self-realization with the God, without God, it is impossible. Your self-realization is possible to that much degree you have got God realization. Brahmaji got God realization, he got self-realization. And there, Rupa Goswami gives an example. When you see your reflection in the mirror, that is compared to self-realization, you're only able to see as much as there is a sunlight. So if you have an experience of sun, only then you can have experience of yourself. Without the rising of the sun, which is compared to rising of Krishna consciousness, you cannot see yourself in the mirror. Similarly, without becoming God conscious, there is no meaning to self-realization. Therefore, Mayavadis are said in Ishopanishad, they go to the greatest of the hells like that. Text number 33, the last verse for the purpose verse of this chapter. Lord Brahma, thus being surcharged with the mode of passion, being inclined to create, after seeing the 5 causes of creation indicated by the personality Godhead, he began to offer respectful prayers on the path of the creative mentality. Even if one is in the material mode of passion to create something in the world, he has to take shelter of the Supreme for the necessary energy. That is the path of the successful termination of any attempt. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purpose of 3rd canto, 8th chapter, Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Manifestation of Brahma from the Garbhodakshayi Vishnu. And next time, or next Friday, when we catch up, we'll read about the prayers that's spoken by Brahmaji. And then again, the storyline will continue. We'll take that subject as we proceed ahead. Thank you all for your kind attention. We are able to complete 1 chapter in 1 sitting. Great. I was worried I should not go spill over to the next. Any questions or comments? अब किसी का कोई वाद विवाद कुछ है तो हम कर सकते हैं. Yes, Vittal Dev, what's your question?
Here it was said that like Brahma did penance for 100 years, but it also said that in each day he does the creation.
Yeah.
So how in a day 100 years are coming?
Yeah, this times thing will be mentioned, explained later on also. So what is the subject matter of time is, for every planet the time varies. So when Maitri Muni is explaining, just like we hear the story of Ajamil, when Ajamil was 80 years old, he chanted Narayan. You're talking about Satya Yuga, isn't it? If Ajamil was living in Satya Yuga, how can he be 80 years old and become 80 years and become old? Yes or no? So this little time as a subject matter is a little tricky. It is not so self-evident. So because this is something which has been heard, and this has not been spoken by the sages only living on planet Earth. You know, for example, let's say I am living in America. In India, there is no concept of DST, daylight saving. If I am staying in America and I talk to, let's say, call Vittal, and I tell, Vittal, यहाँ पर जो हमारा काम होता है, वो समर सीजन में 2 घंटे जल्दी शुरू होता है और सितंबर में 2 घंटे लेट शुरू होता है. You may just take this and sell it to somebody else, but the fellow will not understand. Why? Because you don't have DST. Similarly, our time zones are very different from the other time zone, and particularly this has come down the line. Now they heard it from क्या कहते हैं आपका Lord Shankarshan, like this. So don't go into the exact of that timing, but you understand you really can't put it. If this is a conversation happening between you and I of this world in a particular time frame, then we can speak something on the time frame. But this is of the places where when Shankarshan would have spoken, it's different time zone. By the time information would have reached down the parampara, different time zone, so many time zones. So let's okay. So it's like 100 years, 1,000 years. You understand it for a long time. We really cannot understand that concept because there are so many time zones we're talking about. Right? Yes.
So in regards
Oh, I forgot the mic on me. thoughts faster than yeah. I don't know if anyone is able to hear. Yes, go ahead.
In regards to Brahma being mentioned about the then we also see that
Brahma Vimohan Leela. Actually, this is what acharyas talk about it. So this whole now few things. This is again becomes a tricky subject matter. I have not as such much paid in detail attention to the technicalities. Those who have all the time and leisure to sit for all day, they can do that, but that's not our life. So when the stories are given in scriptures, they're not only referring to particular Brahma's life. That becomes very interesting. For example, Vishnu Thakur and both Sridhar also, Swami also mentioned this particular day which is mentioned is of our day of Brahma. So ye jo darshan Brahma ji ko hue, that is in this day in which we have appeared. And what is the duration of Brahma's life? Duration of Brahma's life as of now is 51 year, first month, first day. This is a New Year celebration going on for Brahmaji in that way. And this day, Brahmaji had this. So when these ancient stories have been told by the sages, if you see, they will go more into the details of aapka kehte hain, the things which is needed for our growth. But not in the technical thing, wo Brahma kab ke the, ye kab ka tha, because that's a Gyani platform. Now, some of our acharyas would do take a pain and talk about it, Srila Jiva Goswami, because in case information has been presented for Gyanis to understand, they would speak. If in case somebody have heard a doubt, that people are having doubt, then that point of time, Goswamis would have spoken about that doubt as an answer in their writings. Otherwise, to really decode this is very difficult. So what I'm saying is, our acharyas have mentioned our Brahmaji is a pure devotee. And that Brahmaji appears as Haridas Thakur. This much is clear. Now that pure devotee Brahma, Brahma Vimohan Leela, if a pure devotee gets into doing that, which means it was just the, that was the desire of the Lord. For example, Jai Vijay, another fantastic story. We don't know this side of the story because Prabhupada didn't elaborate, because Prabhupada largely focused on practical application. Now, Jai Vijay offending four Kumaras. Why did anyone knows why Jai Vijay offended four Kumaras? They wanted to meet. Who wanted to meet whom? So four Kumaras. Why did Jai Vijay offended four Kumaras? No, you will not have the answer only. Period. Four Kumaras. Why Jai Vijay? What is the question of Jai Vijay stopping anyone from entering Vaikuntha when nobody can enter Vaikuntha? First of all. But they have reached up to the last gate. Then why? Vishnu Thakur and Acharya has mentioned, Jai Vijay had sensed the desire of the Lord for Viryaras. For that desire of the Lord to be fulfilled for Viryaras, now with whom Lord will fight? Lord will fight with his own devotees. So therefore, they intentionally blocked four Kumaras. They knew they will get angry, they'll cuss. They intentionally did it. So for this Bhagavat philosophy exists at many multiple levels. So very primary level, as Prabhu said, because unko jaane nahi diya. Kisi ne bola, wo ghamandi ho gaye the. This is correct at different levels. But the actual reason was because they are Jai Vijay. How can they make a blunder? So they sensed. I mean, you are the devotee, or you are the gatekeeper. Wouldn't you understand what is the Lord's desire? They saw Lord is having a desire to less engage in fist fighting, combat. So who else can do it? Will do it. How? Gets cursed. So Brahmaji performing Brahma Vimohan Leela is another aspect of fulfilling Lord's desire. As much as Bhishma Dev fighting at the side of Kauravas, fulfilling the Lord's desire like that. So when it comes from these personalities, we should speak as much as our acharyas have spoken. To that degree, we can raise questions, raise finger at them. If the finger had not been raised by the acharyas, then we should not bring doubt about these personalities. We are committing Vaishnava. And you're not committing Vaishnava to some tiny creature, to neophyte sadhaka. So like that is the beauty of this beautiful discussion. Fine. Many beautiful things now going to come in. Canto. Okay. Yes, last question. Yes, question. Quick. Yeah. तुम्हारा डेली जपा चलता है, उनका तपा चलता है. Now next morning be grateful for what you have received, that you are just sitting peacefully chanting. For that also, and little service we do, उसके लिए हम इतना ह्यू एंड क्राई करते हैं, कितना सेवा है. Look at what Brahmaji has to do, go through, what Brahmaji has to go through. All right. Anything from the online audience? We went over time, so fine. Once in a while is okay. हम तुम्हारा प्रसाद हम कैसे मिलेंगे प्रश्न. All right. जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय. श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय.